everyone, and welcome back to the Marketer of the Day podcast. We are here with return guest John Doherty from getcredo.com. That's GETCREDO.com. And John and Credo are a Denver, Colorado-based entrepreneur and marketing company. And Credo helps you find the best SEO or digital marketing agency for Facebook ads, SEO audits, content marketing, and more, that kind of thing. It's always changing, and it feels like we're always missing out on even like a lot of the fundamentals. So John will be telling us what we need to know, what to focus on, what to ignore. John, how's it going today?
Doing well, Robert. Thanks for having me back on. It's been a couple of years, and lots happened. So it's good to see you again.
Good to see you. And not only does a lot happen on the internet, but it seems like it's like always accelerating. Like what used to be 2 years now seems like 2 weeks. So what is the latest with you, and what is the latest in the internet world that you think we need to focus on?
Yeah, good question. So yeah, as you said, I totally agree. Things have just accelerated really fast over the last, especially year, 18 months with the pandemic and all of that. And so it's been an interesting time, kind of being in the digital space and seeing companies, kind of go through an evolution from, in-person offices to work from home. And then also, a lot of companies kind of taking a hard look at their books, taking a hard look at what they're spending on, where they're getting a return from, and kind of moving things around. So it's been a really interesting time seeing what companies are doing when it comes to marketing, kind of what they're investing in. And honestly, something that we've seen that's been well, there's one thing that I expected to see that I didn't see, and one thing that I didn't realize we would see that happen. So the first one is I expected to see a lot more companies kind of laying off their marketing teams and going to more of a hub and spoke model of, instead of having like in-house specialists, kind of having like a couple of generalists, kind of marketing managers, and then managing an SEO firm and a Facebook ads firm and that kind of thing. And I actually did not really see that happen. I saw a lot of companies just kind of retain their teams and kept kind of doing the same things, and saw a lot of companies actually pull back on agency spend and kind of do a lot more of it in-house. So that was really, really interesting to see. So that bet that I made kind of didn't pan out, or just what I was watching for didn't really pan out. And then also something that I did see is we've seen a lot of companies when they're hiring agencies get a lot more focused on that agency's experience. They're all requiring case studies now. A lot of companies hiring are all requiring case studies. So if you're an agency, you have to have case studies, kind of in the major verticals that you work in. And then when you're talking to the company, or, talking to a prospect, or if you're a prospect that's hiring an agency, the agency needs to present the case studies of the type of company that you are, right? Maybe they don't have someone exactly in your vertical, but if you're e-commerce, the agency during their sales process needs to present to you other e-commerce clients, right? Like they should be talking about B2B lead gen and that kind of thing. They might mention them as they're talking about, well, this is how we work with that client, with this specific client. But when you're talking about the marketing strategies that are going to be employed, that agency needs to show you that they have experience working with your type of business. And so that's been an interesting shift that we've seen, clients or prospects requiring that and actually really looking for that. I think that's a really good thing, and it makes agencies up their game as well. And we've seen fewer people kind of hiring agencies and being like, we're going to take a chance on this one and see how it works out. What's the worst that could happen, right? I mean, the worst that could happen always has been you're going to waste time, you're going to waste money, you're going to waste opportunity. But people are much less willing to take that shot now. So it's been an interesting time to kind of see how behavior has shifted in the industry.
And what comes to mind when you mention that is the whole idea of like the marketplace cycles, how there's like a novelty stage where like just having an agency makes you stand out, but then it gets too crowded, and then it turns into who can be bigger and deliver bigger results, and then that gets too crowded, and then it turns into like the sophistication and who can be who can have the most add-ons. But then it seems like at that point, then it's really easy to get really deep into all the geek speak, right? And if there's some like brick and mortar store, like they just get so bogged down hearing about QR codes and Bluetooth beacons and like geofencing and just all these crazy things. It's like it becomes so overwhelming. It's like, well, I know that there's like 75 things that you can do for me, but instead of choosing one or two or trying to unpack them, like I just want to know that you have experience and that you've done this whole kind of package for you. So along those lines, along that kind of thinking, what is like a cool case study from your agency recently? Like, since we're talking about, having the story and talking about, well, there's this vertical type of client that you want to land, and you have like a success story. What comes to mind in that area?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's also worth mentioning that Credo is kind of we're a productized service that we sit in the middle. We're matchmakers that we help companies find and hire digital marketing firms, right? So we're not an agency ourselves selling marketing services to clients. So it's actually been really interesting because we get to see a broader set, right? We get to see a lot of agencies trying to sell a lot of work. I mean, we're matching millions of dollars of marketing budget with agencies every single month, and we're a small team of 6 out of Denver, Colorado. So we punch way above our weight. But we had an interesting, and part of the reason why this is top of mind is because we had an interesting situation recently. Great B2B SaaS company coming in looking to hire. They we matched them up with a few of our partner agencies, and this specific prospect hired us to basically help them through the process, helping them out with questions to ask, and reviewing proposals and that sort of thing. And they got to the end with a couple of the agencies. They had one that they liked, and that agency just would not show them. I know they have these case studies, but they wouldn't show them case studies and give them examples, even anonymized, of work that they've done for very similar B2B SaaS companies. And the client literally told me, Rob, they said, it's like we're at the store and we have the credit card and we want to swipe it, but they keep taking the point of sale system away from us. And so they actually went back and brought some other agencies back into into consideration and had those conversations and that kind of thing. This agency could have closed it if they just had those case studies ready to go and been able to talk about them. So, likely that this prospect, this client has not hired yet, but they're likely going to go with somebody else that, basically specializes in B2B SaaS and has those case studies ready to go. And I've seen this happening more and more where like they're getting close and they're like, but we just haven't seen this thing that we need to see. And it's almost always experience with their type of business and being able to talk about that. As I said, even in an anonymized sort of way, you don't have to tell them specifically, this is who the client was, this is our point of contact was, that kind of thing. But it's just, this is a B2B funded, venture-backed B2B SaaS company that we worked with, and we took them from X to Y, and this is what the engagement looked like. Even that right there would have helped this prospect be ready to sign.
And that's interesting to think about, because I mean, there's been so many times when I would go and like package something up real quick just to make a sale and think like, okay, like I don't really feel like putting this data into a PDF document. I don't really feel like getting this graphic, but I would just like have it there and ready to buy, and that would work. And there's been so many, and it's like sort of a similar idea of like, there's been times when like I just would whip up a button. Someone would say, I want to buy this service from you, or want to buy this custom package. And years ago, I used to say, oh no, I'm not interested in selling this particular service, or I'd like go and like waste 2 weeks figuring out a good package. And nowadays, sometimes if someone's ready to buy, I'll just figure out like what they need, give them a button, and then half the time it'll work. And I'll be like, whoa, I didn't expect them to buy right then. So that's kind of what comes to mind there, of like just the idea of like having a buy button for something. And it's so simple and it's so easy not to have, but it's also not that difficult to just get something prepared. And kind of like how you're saying here with, if everyone's missing the case study, and if you're going to all this trouble of figuring out the traffic and making sure your agency website's working, and you have wasting all or not wasting, but you're spending all this ad spend doing all this work just to get them right to the end. Like you said, it's like you're snatching away the credit card swiper, and they have their credit card ready to go. And so that seems like something that we all need to kind of sit up and pay attention to, and especially if especially like kind of this whole idea you're saying of seeing where the marketplace is at. And so like how do you notice those things? Is that a matter of like staying on the message boards, or like checking the news every day? Like how do you come to this sort of a conclusion, such as we need case studies? Like how do you stay on top of that?
Oh man, it's a good question. Honestly, it's a problem that I don't know that anyone is solving well. I don't think we're solving it well. I kind of evangelize it on doing podcast interviews like this. I think part of it might be actually being part of, you know, like an agency group. There's so many good like Facebook groups of agency owners. One that comes to mind is, I think it's called Digital Agency Insiders or something like that. We actually have one at Credo called Effective Agency Owners, where, you know, people are kind of posting questions and asking, you know, asking questions like this. Yeah, it's kind of especially like the agency space, the agency owner space. It's kind of a tough, it's tough to get a lot of that signal, right, and kind of realize what's you know, what's happening, where the shifts are happening, broader in the market. So I don't really have a great answer for you, other than, you know, there are communities out there, you know, and different like coaching programs and that kind of thing as well, that you know, where there's a community and people are kind of discussing this sort of thing.
Okay, fair enough. And yeah, I'm in some of these groups like this where it feels like a waste of time because I'm going on, I'm getting distracted. I'm like, oh, this person's talking about that. But then I feel like when I limit myself to like just like 5-10 minutes a day looking at some of this, I feel like I kind of slowly get it like sinking into my brain. And if the same person is talking about the same thing again and again, I'm like, ooh, that's a thing to be paying attention to. And sometimes it helps me overcome like the kind of the more boring things, like for example how the big talk these days is about the page load speed, right? And how
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh, page load speed, it's like one of the last things I want to think about. But then if everyone's concerned about page load speed, then I start to think, okay, this is becoming more and more of a priority for me. And so like I'm sure that you see a lot of these like agencies out there doing things right and doing things wrong, and we already talked about like the wrong thing is like not having the case studies ready. But are you seeing a lot of people like doing things really well that maybe we should all pay attention to?
Yeah, so it's interesting. The agencies that I'm seeing close the best work these days, or close the most work these days, and keep clients the happiest, they're not the ones that are out there kind of talking heads on Twitter talking about core web vitals and page speed, right? Because those, while those are absolutely important, um, there are so many companies out there that just have not gotten the basics right. And that getting what has been so good for so long in the digital marketing world, that you could kind of just like throw some things against the wall and some of it would hit and you could build a decent business, you know? But what we've really seen in the last 18 months or so is that if you're not nailing the basics, you don't have, you know, when it comes to SEO, for example, you don't have good on-site, you know, technical SEO, your pages, you know, if you have a lot of pages way deep down, it takes a lot of clicks to get to them. They're not going to rank. You know, if you're not kind of getting that sort of thing right, you know, the right messaging on the page, the right keyword targeting, that kind of thing, you're just not going to do nearly as well as someone else that has nailed that, right? And then producing content that, you know, is engineered to rank, it's engineered to be read, it's engineered to rank, and it's engineered to get people to convert. And then same thing with link building. If you don't have those basics nailed, you're not doing nearly as well now as you were before. And so the agencies that we see doing the best, yeah, they can talk about core web vitals. They know what it means. They can talk about page speed and, you know, improving that and why you should be, you know, doing that. But at the end of the day, they have a set process that works well to say, okay, let's get all of these things covered, and then we can worry about core web vitals, page speed, you know, where your form is on the page, that sort of thing, and kind of stacking those in a way that makes sense. Nailing the basics, working on page speed, working on, you know, making sure your bases are covered when it comes to whatever new thing Google has talked about. And then once you have that, then the efforts on conversion optimization, that sort of thing, are really going to show better results, right? You're going to get a better return on your investment if you start kind of investing in those then, as opposed to like, let's start running a bunch of Facebook ads, but your site doesn't load and your messaging doesn't make any sense, right? You got to solve that stuff first. You got to walk before you run. And so actually, Rob, it's interesting that we're seeing more companies coming to us being like, we don't have the basics. We don't have the basics nailed yet, right? Like versus before, we got a lot of people coming to us saying, oh, I see my competitors are doing this thing, and so we're not really sure if it's going to work for us or not. And you know, we're going to try it out for a little bit, and if the return's there, we'll invest more. Like, or oh, we're thinking about maybe possibly doing something around SEO in the future. Can you sell us on why we should do it? We're not seeing that anymore. We're seeing people come to us and being like, we're getting outflanked when it comes to SEO and content, and we need an agency that's going to help us be competitive in the marketplace again. So people are just much more serious. There are way fewer tire kickers out there is what we've seen, which is really good, right? We spend less of our time on unqualified people. Agencies spend less of their time talking to unqualified people. And at the end of the day, more companies end up hiring agencies that can help them get results.
And that's reassuring to hear because like I mean I'm not like an agency per se, but every now and then I'm talking to a prospective client and they'll just want a certain thing, right? They'll be like, I want to run Yelp ads, or like I want to do the billboard thing where like you it's like a cost per click and it like shows on some digital billboard, and I'm like thinking like, okay, like which competitor of yours was doing that, and then you all you saw was that, you didn't see all the 52 other things they were doing as far of the foundation. And it's like they're singularly focused on like catching up with this competitor, but then looking as an outsider looking in on their website, it's like I can't easily tell like their hours of operation. I can't easily like get to a contact form. And so you're so right that it's good that this has evolved into this, where instead of saying, "Ooh, I want this gimmick, I want this one thing, and I'm not even sure why," instead it's kind of going back to whatever those fundamentals, like you said, like the it's not easy to get down and drill down to just the exact page on the site, or the linking, or something like that. So like what's an easy win for someone out there? Is it a matter of like booking a call with you, or like going through some kind of a checklist? Like what's something that we could all do like today or this week, just to in general like get our websites working better, get our businesses like functioning better?
Interesting question. I think the first thing would be to go and, I mean, try to take a look, and I try to do this fairly often with our site, is go and try to take a look at your own website, your own presence online as a potential buyer, right? So I put myself into the mind of, like, yes, I've been in marketing for a long time. Yes, I was a marketing consultant for a long time. I've worked at agencies, I've worked in house. And so I try to go back to that mindset of like when I was in house, or even now running a company that we're growing well, we've doubled in the last year, that we also work with agencies for some of our marketing, right? Because I'm an SEO and content guy. I'm not an ads guy. So we work with ads agencies, to run our own advertising. And so I try to put myself in the mind of the buyer as I'm going through my site and say like, what is not clear here, right? What would keep someone from converting on our site, right? From contacting us and scheduling a call with my rep to, so that we can kind of figure out what it is they're looking for and get them introduced to the right people. What would keep them from doing that, right? And then kind of putting together a list of hypotheses, and then rolling them out, annotating analytics, and seeing what happens to the numbers, right? If you have if it's a big change, you should probably try to A/B test it, or figure out what's kind of a lightweight way that we can do it to make sure we're not going to like decimate our conversions. But kind of putting together that list of like, what are the things that aren't clear here? Is it my hours of operation? Is it not clear on how to contact me? Am I making it hard to contact me and telling everybody to call me, but I'm only putting that phone number at the bottom of one page on my website, right? Like that kind of thing. That right there, if you can fix that, you can make it easy to discover your contact form and send you an inquiry, right? Or, a chat, a chat bubble or something like that. I hate chat bubbles on websites, by the way. Like I find the conversations there are just a waste of time, and the leads are all garbage. But like if you don't have anything, you don't have a good way for people to contact you, making it easy for them to contact you. So putting yourself in that buyer mindset and looking at your own presence, especially like local business, as we said, look at your Yelp profile, look at your Google My Business, that kind of thing. Is it the right phone number? Is it the right address? Are your hours of operation correct? Is your mask policy up to date? Like that sort of thing. Just making sure that those questions that people are asking as they're considering contacting you or coming into your store or whatever, making sure all of that is taken care of. Just getting those basics right before you start thinking about beacons and all that kind of thing, which honestly is still years out, right? That technology is still years out from being affordable, to the common business, if we're talking about kind of location-based businesses. So that's where I would start today.
And that's cool, because when you're explaining that, what comes to mind is that there's the issue of like, what are the bottlenecks? Like, could someone land on a page and then just like drop off there? And then there's also maybe like they think maybe they're on the right page, but they're confused. Like you said, the things about like mask policy, they're not sure if like the business is even open, or if things are kind of like up to date there. And it seems like just the way that you kind of like explain this, it only takes a few minutes. It might be a little awkward and painful, especially if you don't do this on a regular basis, but it just takes a few minutes to be that outsider and to be like, okay, if I was a buyer, if I was looking to do this, if I was looking to book an appointment, like where would I naturally be clicking and going? And I mean, I've cringed so many times when I would go back to like an old website of mine and use maybe some kind of like third party, like, I don't know, like appointment scheduler or something, and have like old code and it doesn't work, or
Mm-hmm.
try out a contact form and like the capture won't work, or I've like, my favorite is going to one of my opt-in pages and re-opting in with an address I know is already opted in, because sometimes like if you don't have it set up right, there's an error. And you're like, well,
Right.
I didn't know it was on your list, but I wanted to be on just to make sure, and you won't even let me do that. And now I'm just completely stuck. It's like all these little nooks and crannies, and you could drive yourself crazy, like thinking about all the things to check for. But then I like your thought process of like, just take a few minutes and just go through and like kind of see what you see and see what can be like tweaked and improved. And so this is a lot to think about, and it has me curious about, well, what is kind of the on the frontier for you? Like you said, crazy things like beacons, the technology is not there yet, but what about in these next coming like weeks and months, hopefully, ideally, recovering from a pandemic, things opening, like what has you excited moving forward?
I think one of the things that I'm excited about moving forward is that I think we're going to see companies like the good ones have stuck around. The good ones have even grown, right? Let's solid businesses. Let me put it that way. Have even grown. And so I'm actually excited to see some of these companies that have gone through the pandemic. They've weathered the storm. They've grown. They're sitting on a cash chest right now. They're sitting on a war chest, right? And they're going to start investing again into new channels, right? So they've been doing SEO, and SEO has converted really well for them, and it's been good, and they've been spending good money on it. They maybe have a team, and now they're like, okay, now how do we invest back into the business, right? Like, can we get our Google ads working? Can we get our Facebook ads working? And so I'm actually really excited to see companies starting to invest again, instead of saying like, investing in new things and trying new things, instead of just saying like, oh, we just, we need to watch we need to watch our spend super carefully, which like every business should be watching their spend. But I'm excited to see companies kind of, trying new things and kind of getting new programs off the ground again, which honestly, Rob, and if I can put this in there, I think this is an area of opportunity for agencies. I've found very few agencies out there, and if there are agencies out there that do this, hit me up. um, that bring on clients that are looking to get their Google ads going, their Facebook ads going, right? Maybe they have 5K a month in spend or something like that and haven't really done it before. There are very few agencies out there that I have found that are willing to take on clients, get their ads campaign set up, get their initial messaging, their initial creative, kind of work in an iterative process to get it working for that client, and then scale it from there. So many agencies are like, we only take people that are spending at least $20,000 a month on advertising, which I get, and those are ideal. I'm not gonna refute that, but there are a lot of people out there that have good money to spend these days that just need someone to help them get it going. And so I think that's an opportunity for a lot of agencies out there these days, and to figure out how could you make that work, right? Like, yeah, your ideal are the 20K, 50K a month spend clients, but do you have someone internally that's really good at starting new ad campaigns and can get that off the ground, and then you can grow them up to that level? Something worth thinking about.
And I like that thinking a lot of like where's the hole in the marketplace, and like clearly we all have an ideal vision for like the kind of person we want. We like someone that would pay this, and it's good to look like a boutique kind of agency and say like, we limit ourselves, and we don't take these types of clients. We only take this type of person. But I like your way of thinking. Is there a company that, or a client that's like almost on the periphery there, that could be walked up to that? That's really interesting to think about, of like what's the kind of the missing opportunity out there for a lot of agencies that are just kind of like they could get there, right? And they could get them there. And so you say that you would like someone from this type of agency to contact you, someone who is kind of looking to like walk up a business to 20K a month ad spend. Is that right?
Yeah, I just see we've seen a lot of people coming through Credo that they're like, we have money to spend on advertising. We haven't done it before. And we need an agency to A, help us out with establishing the strategy and then helping us operate it, right? Reporting, helping us see what's the return, optimizing it from there so we get it to a good return and then we scale. But just so many agencies out there are like, nope, we need you to already have an established thing. You need to be spending X amount, per month already. And they don't even like touch the strategy side. So I think there's an opportunity there for someone to step in and say, you know what, we're great with helping clients, launch figure out what their strategy should be, where should they be spending, what should they be spending, what should their messaging say, and then helping them launch that and getting those initial numbers in and then helping them grow. So it's a space that I see that there's a lot of opportunity, and we haven't found those people, who are really good at that yet.
Interesting. So you've given us a lot to think about. You've told us that we need to maybe look like keep on trend with the things that people are looking for. We need to maybe look at maybe even our own websites and see, well, what would a buyer be going through? Where do they get confused? Where do they get stuck? And then maybe even consider this like blue ocean kind of thinking, where instead of going after the same clients, look at is there someone new that could get to where we want them to go, instead of having to go through the rigmarole of they're unhappy with their last agency and now you have to like undo a lot of things, or have to unlearn some things, or fix someone else's work and then get this new thing figured out. And it might be that by the time you get them up and running, maybe they'll be unhappy with you and jump ship. Instead of all that rigmarole, maybe walk someone up to where we want them to get to. Is there anything that you think that we all need to be paying attention to in these last few minutes, like that maybe we left out? We talked about all these things. Does any like final point or any final piece of advice come to mind?
So I think one thing to think about that I've recently been dealing with some agencies and some clients is there are people out there that they're saying, I need to do SEO. We've been doing it, for a while, and I have, X budget per month, right? I've carved out $3,000 a month. And the agency looks at it and they're like, well, ideally you'd be spending six, right? In order to, capitalize on this opportunity. And the client's like, I don't have that, right? My budget is half of that. And what a lot of agencies do is just say like, I'm not gonna, I'm just gonna say they're not qualified and we're not gonna take them on. But what I would encourage both the kind of the mindset that I would encourage both sides of the market to get into is, if you're a buyer and you've got $3,000 a month to spend, agency's telling you six. You can't get $6,000 worth of work for $3,000, right? But you can't get, if you can see results in 6 months time with 6,000, it's going to take you 12 months time to see results with 3,000. So being willing to elongate the project time, just recognizing that like if you can spend more, you can see results faster. If you can't spend more, then it's going to take longer to see results. Same thing for an agency. If a client comes to you, they can spend $3,000 a month, right? And you're willing to take on clients at that level, they ideally spend six. Help them out with understanding that like, hey, we can get you the results. It's just going to take longer, right? It's going to take 12 months time, to get it done. And on the agency side, not giving $6,000 with a value for only $3,000, right? Give people what it is that they're paying for. So I think we need to kind of get into that mindset of, there's the good, fast, cheap, triangle. If you want good and cheap, it's not going to be fast. If you want good and fast, it's not going to be cheap. So I think it's worthwhile to think through that from both sides. When a company's looking to engage with an agency, and when an agency's thinking about bringing on a client.
Yeah, that's interesting to think about, is how to have that wiggle room from either the buyer or the seller without compromising, without saying that, oh, well, now I'm just discounting my prices 50%, or now I'm spending money that I don't have in the budget. If you think about that time factor, that's really interesting to think about, that it's kind of like more of like a slow burn versus like a faster rush delivery. That's like kind of a cool outside the box way of thinking. So that way you're not turning down work as an agency, but you're not missing out on these services as a client. And so, man, there's been so much for us to think about, and especially that agencies need to have their dang case studies, because they're really missing out. And if people are out there in podcast land and listening and worrying about maybe worrying that like their business might not be the best it can be, might be, I don't know, eventually like going on the downhill, or they just need to be tapped into the latest and greatest things they need to be doing, how do they contact you? How do they keep up to date with Credo? Where should people be going after listening to our conversation?
Yes, our website is, as you outlined at the start, getcredo.com, GETCREDO.com. We call ourselves Credo. And so that's where you can go if you're looking to hire an agency. We also have a very active blog where we're talking about, things going on in digital marketing, talking about, if you're a B2B SaaS company, how to optimize your website and grow your business through SEO. You're an e-commerce company and you're getting on Amazon. How do you find Amazon keyword research keyword data, that kind of thing? Like, these are sorts of topics that we've written about recently and we're writing about ongoing. So check us out there. If you want to follow me personally, you can follow me on Twitter at DohertyJF, DOHERTYJF. And if you're an agency out there that does phenomenal strategy work and you love getting new ad campaigns off the ground, John@getcredo.com. That's my direct inbox. I'd love to speak with you.
Fantastic. So you hear that? You need to contact John immediately, if not sooner. That is John@getcredo.com, and getcredo.com is the website. And thanks, John, for stopping by and just giving us so many things to think about, and not even like a laundry list, but like things in terms of like strategy as far as like the thought process. And so this way, when things change in the marketplace, which like we said, it's only going to get faster, at least if we have the foundation and the thought process, then we'll know how to attack these problems moving forward. So I really appreciate it. Really appreciate you, and everyone. We will see you at getcredo.com. And thank you, John.
You're welcome. Thanks, Rob.